Hi viewers, yesterday I had a no crank no start condition with my Jeep Patriot 2009. I suspect the Tipm to be the cause of this problem. Now there's no time to waste, let's begin the troubleshooting.
The day before the snowfall, I checked the battery and it was fully charged. I also confirmed that the two battery poles were well connected. There was no problem with the three chassis ground connected on the body nearby the battery. The no bus message displayed on my cluster and the no crank condition indicated that there was probably no bus communication between the Tipm, the cluster and the PCM. I tried to read the OBD2 codes with my scanner, but there was no communication between my scanner and the Tipm. I didn't have any wiring diagrams, but I decided to have a close look at the Tipm electrical contacts. I began by disconnecting the battery. Then I had to unfasten the Tipm unit from the three holding tabs. There was not a lot of room to work. I could have removed the battery and the main chassis ground to ease the job. Because it was too difficult to show how to unplug the connectors when I was outside, I will show you detailed views coming from an old Jeep Compass project. Under the Tipm, the 12-volt power supply cable was the first item to be disconnected. The big connectors were hard to remove. First, I had to release the red sliding tab, then I pressed on the locking tab, and the retaining lever was ready to be fully depressed. The following step was to wiggle and pull the connector while pressing on the lever. I finished with the small connectors that had a standard locking tab system, and they were easy to remove. When all connectors were disconnected, I pulled out the Tipm assembly and I had a quick look to locate any obvious corroded contacts. After that, it was time to complete the inspection on my work table. Before I removed any fuses, I took a picture for future references. To access the electronic board assembly, I began by unscrewing the 5 screws with a T20 bit. After that, it was easy to remove the Tipm housing. To fully disassemble the remaining components, I had to unclip the 4 locking tabs to free the electronic board. I avoided any static discharge by not touching the microprocessing components on the board. I checked the board terminals to find any corrosion or damaged components. I noticed that some contact pins used for the C1 connector were oxidized and others had a dull surface. An easy solution to improve the quality of the connections is to use a contact cleaner that can dissolve the oxidation on contact surfaces. I began by cleaning the 6 small connections that are aligned on the Tipm board. After, I continued with the contact tabs and the fuse holders. And why not cleaning the fuses at the same time? It took me only 2 minutes. When all the contacts were dried, I reassembled the circuit board with the board holder and I fastened the 4 tabs slowly to avoid damaging the board. After, I secured the Tipm housing and I fastened the 5 screws with my T20 bit. You can refer to the color references printed on the housing to help you to reinstall the connectors. To ease the installation of the large connectors, I applied a coat of solvent-free grease on the retaining studs. The next day, I spent more time to find any damage on the harness branches located under the Tipm. 3 chassis ground lugs are connected on the Jeep body near the battery. The single one is G101 for the battery and the 2 other ones are G111 and G112 used to ground the electrical components. The 3 ground lugs and the harness connectors for the Tipm were also cleaned. I also applied grease where there was too much friction with the lever. During the Tipm installation, I kept the battery cables disconnected. First, I connected the heavy gauge cable terminated with the big lug. After, I positioned the Tipm assembly to ease the installation of all connectors. I began with the installation of the small connectors. I continued with the big ones. Each connector was inserted and pressed down until it was fully engaged and the retaining lever moved in the middle position. I completed the operation by locking the lever. For safety, the red sliding lock must be inserted behind the locking tab. When all the connectors were in place, I secured the Tipm assembly with the 3 metal tab supports. The main chassis ground was reconnected. The battery cables were reconnected. Finally, it was time to test the starting system. The cluster display looked normal. Then, when the engine started, it was music to my ears, and the cluster did not look like a Christmas tree. Before doing the run test, I checked the DLC communication with my scanner. After I had driven for 10 kilometers or 6 miles, the engine was starting and running normally. In conclusion, like the relay block, the base of the Tipm is not waterproof. With that engineering design, there is no sealing plug for the contact pins or the contact sockets, and the connectors are not sealed. After some years, you can expect the contamination and the oxidation to reduce the quality of the Tipm connections.
I hope you like my cleaning procedure and also the fact that the Tipm could be working fine without having to pay for an expensive replacement at the Jeep dealer.